Good morning. Welcome to the Tuesday edition of Inside Nigeria, your breakfast from Leadership Television. My name is Winifred Ubebo, your host on the program. Today is September 16th, 2025. And of course, we are looking at what the papers are saying on today's segment of the show. Leadership's leading story says 2027 northern leaders differ with Governor Bago. Yesterday on TVC's monitored program interview, the governor of Niger State did say that the North has no business contesting against Tinubu for 2027 presidential election. Say politicians from, and of course that has been met with resistance, with different responses coming from the Arewa Consultative Forum, saying that northern leaders differ with Governor Bago, saying that northerners have a right to contest in any election. And going down memory lane, they did say that we have had two northerners who contested against Olusegun Obasanjo in 2023. Leadership's leading story says 2027 northern leaders differ with Governor Bago. Say politicians from North have constitutional right to contest against Tinubu. And that story continues on page 4 of Leadership. Before we bring in Leadership's analyst, Paul Wadima, to talk more on the story, let's just read some excerpts from the leading story on today's Leadership newspaper. The topmost northern social cultural organization, Arewa Consultative Forum, ACF, has declared that northern aspirants, like other Nigerians, have the constitutional right to contest the 2027 presidential elections against President Bola Tinubu. ACF National Publicity Secretary, Professor T.A. Muhammad Baba, dismissed such calls and said there was no way to stop any northerner from contesting the top position. He noted that such calls had been made earlier but failed to yield positive results. Muhammad Baba made this clarification while reacting to a comment by Niger State Governor Mohammed Bago, who asked northerners willing to be Nigeria's president to wait until 2031, in keeping with a power rotation deal of the presidency rotating between the northern and southern regions. However, Governor Bago, this is not the first time this call is coming from. The SGF also made a statement months back that the northerners should wait for their turn. Meanwhile, before we move on to other stories gracing the cover of Leadership, let's have Leadership analyst Paul Wadima to shed light on this. Paul, is it the constitutional right? However, though it's not in the Constitution, but however, it's like a gentleman's agreement that power rotation should rotate between the North and South regions of the country. And now that President Bola Tinubu is just spending 2 years, there are agitations even from the northerners, like former Vice President Abubakar Atiku, to contest the 2027 election. And this is not going down well with a cross-section of Nigerians, especially the southern region. Paul, what are your views on this?
Thank you very much.
First and foremost, welcome to today's Inside Nigeria, Paul.
Yes, thank you very much for having me. It's an interesting question. But the truth is that constitutionally, every Nigerian is entitled to contest the election as president of Nigeria if he so wish. In that aspect, the Arewa Consultative Forum is right. They cannot stop any northerner who is determined to contest the 2027 election. They don't even have the right to stop anyone in any case, because it is the right of any northerner to contest, or any Nigerian for that matter, to contest the 2027 election. However, the Arewa Consultative Forum and the Secretary to the Federal Government you mentioned earlier on are being clever by half. Okay?
I'm listening to you, Paul.
Yes. The Arewa Consultative Forum, they are being clever by half, because they are aware, many of them are elders, they are aware of the history of this country.
Yes.
That there is a power rotation, even though it's unwritten, between North and South. That was why many of them in the Arewa Consultative Forum worked against Jonathan in 2015, because they believe strongly that power should return to North after Obasanjo's 8 years and Jonathan's 5 years You know that in between Yaradua's tenure that was for
Yes.
the North was cut short because of his death.
Yes.
So as a result of that, it is obvious that they are aware that power used to rotate between North and South. And that was why many of them in that Arewa Consultative Forum worked against the re-election of Jonathan in 2015. Now, after Buhari who is from the North, has spent 8 years in office, common sense dictates that power should
More
be to the
sense.
South, and he has to stay for 8 years in the South. I agree, I accept the frustration of the North that uh, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has failed the North, he has failed the country, but that is not a justifiable reason for power to return to the North in 2027, which is the agenda being pursued by former Vice President Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. Okay, what
Yes.
Atiku Abubakar is trying to do is a violation of this rotation principle. And Abubakar is notorious for doing this. Don't forget, he was the one that worked against power rotation in the PDP in 2023. Even though the PDP had set up a committee to determine the rotation, whether to zone or not to zone, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar rushed to go and pick the form, thereby stopping them on their track. And that was how Atiku Abubakar, together with the FCT minister, who was afraid that they wanted to microzone the presidency to the southeast, and he wanted to contest, being from the south-south. So Atiku and Yesowike worked against zoning in PDP. So Atiku is continuing the same process right now by insisting that he will contest. So
All right,
what I'm saying,
Mr.
what I'm saying in summary is that the Arewa Consultative Forum is right constitutionally that no
Yes.
Northerner or any Nigerian can be stopped from
Yes.
contesting the presidency. But North has a moral responsibility to advise their own to say, step aside, wait for 2031. And that is the message that several people have been sending to Alhaji Atiku Abubakar and all others from the North.
All right.
If you
Now,
notice,
Mr.
Atiku
Paul,
Abubakar, okay.
I want to
If you notice,
intervene now.
okay,
You know,
okay.
Nigeria's voting has been patterned along ethnic and religious lines. Now, with this stance now, come 2027, are we going to see more polarization among regional lines? Because we are having a situation whereby people from the southern region are saying that should the North or Atiku Abubakar come out for 2027 presidential elections, they are going to vote for their own President Bola Tinubu to continue in office. Are we going to see more of that in 2027 election?
I think it will be foolish of Southerners to say that they are going to vote for Tinubu if a Northern person come out. Why did I say this?
Why did you say so?
President Bola Ahmed Tinubu himself, when a Southerner was the president in 2015, was colluded with the North. I don't know whether that's the right word to use, but he formed a coalition with the North to remove a certain president that was performing even better than the APC in the last 12 years. Okay?
Yes.
Tinubu did not consider Southern solidarity when he worked against Jonathan. So I don't think anybody should be talking about that. What is important is that the South should rally around another Southern candidate that can be able to perform. Okay? Because, look, let's be clear about it. Tinubu is having the lowest presidential mandate in Nigeria's history. In the last election, INEC gave him 8.7 million votes. INEC gave Atiku Abubakar 6.9 million votes. INEC gave Peter Obi 6.1 million votes. INEC gave Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso 1.4 million votes. If you calculate all these votes from Atiku to Peter Obi to Kwankwaso to Sowore and others, over 15 million Nigerians rejected him to be their president. If you calculate it, you know that Tinubu became president only by just scoring 30-something% of the vote. That is not a wide mandate. Instead of reconciling the country, he has failed to reconcile the country. Instead, what he's doing is he has gotten to the point where he's even worse than Buhari, that people were accused of nepotism. Let me give you a typical example. There was a recent report which showed that in 2 years of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Lagos alone got 3.9 trillion naira budget. Lagos alone. This 3.9 trillion is double the whole of Northwest project. This is Lagos alone. And Lagos alone is getting 3.9 trillion. The Northwest, 7 states, Lagos is getting double what the 7 states in Northwest got. He's gotten almost 4 times what the Northeast got. We are not talking about Southeast. It's like 10 times what the Southeast got. Now look at the Niger Delta that produces the oil. Lagos got 2 times what Niger Delta got. So on what basis will people look at him and say that one, look at the indices. People are saying the food prices are coming down. No food price has come down to the level that President Bola Tinubu made it. You can go and fast check me. No food price had come down. We have to look at his performance from what was the food price on May 28, 2023, when he took over, before we begin to say that food prices are coming down. And he knows it. That's why he's telling his lieutenants to go and crash food price. And they think that just importing food will solve the problem. No, insecurity need to be addressed. Farmers need to go to farm, and Nigeria need to grow its own food. It has failed in that direction, and this is national. That's why I love what the former Speaker of the House of Representatives and now former Governor of Sokoto State, Aminu Tambawa, said. He said there is a national consensus that Tinubu should be stopped. It's not a northern thing. It's not a southern thing. It is a national consensus. That's what he said. And I like the way he put it. National consensus. And that is what is needed. But my own is that even though it's a national consensus, that national consensus should revolve around a southern president emerging in 2027. But it doesn't have to be Tinubu. It can be another person who can do a better job. That's my understanding of what is going on.
Just before you go, Mr. Paul,
Okay.
yesterday it was reported, I think it happened on Sunday, that the ex-lawmakers, during their meeting, they did endorse Tinubu for 2027. Perhaps the former governor and former Speaker of House of Representatives, Aminu Tambuwa, is not a member of the ex-lawmakers Association in Nigeria.
Okay, to answer that question,
Yes.
because they have failed, they are trying to frame the narrative of becoming election north versus south. So what the Tinubu lieutenants are now doing, they are trying to mobilize the south. The same southerners they have not favored.
You didn't get the cross of my question. The
Yes.
Aminu Tambuwa that you cited, I said perhaps he doesn't belong to the ex-lawmakers Association of Nigeria.
Of course he doesn't.
But they have endorsed President Bola Tinubu for 2027 election.
Yes,
including
those are the
former Senate President Ken Namani and every
yes,
other
lawmaker. And of course, Namani says APC chieftain. Namani is APC chieftain.
Yes.
I say APC chieftain. Dugara, you mentioned, he has been dancing around since, and he has been given some job to do. They have appointed him to a position, so you can understand his presence there. But those who are not included, those who have not yet been invited to chop, and they are the majority, they are not there, of course. So this is just about those who are favored. But like I want to point out, this Southern Summit and all that is part of the way they recently propped up Southern Nigerian Traditional Rulers Council. All these things are just to play to the gallery. Akere Dolu, the late governor of Ondo State.
The late governor of Ondo State.
Yes. He led what they call a Asaba declaration that insisted that power must return to Southern Nigeria.
And he did.
Yes, and they did. But since that time, have they ever met again?
No.
Because the election is coming, so they are propping up people from Southern Nigeria, say this is our own. But when the food are being shared, only very few people are called to the table. That's the danger. So what South need is a leader who is going to represent all Nigerians. And what South need is to support a candidate that could be able to do the right thing so that in 4 years' time from 2027, a new Nigeria could be possible.
All right, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to have you on the program. Well, viewers, you've had the
Thank you
pleasure
very
of
much.
hearing from leadership analyst Paul Wadima. Thank you so much. We'll go
Thank you
back
for
to
having
our
me.
newspaper review. Continuing from where we stopped, leadership newspaper. Sue to stop Mark Aregbesol's leadership of ADC suffers setback. Only Senate can reinstate Senator Natasha, says clerk. Ned Nwoko renews push for Anioma State. Social media eroding family values coming from Sultan. Naira hisses month high at 1,497 naira per dollar as inflation slows. Article wants transparent sale of federal stakes in Ohando Seplat orders. Bandits abduct 40 worshippers, kill district head in Zamfara. And PDP says will lead charge against attempts to rig 2027 election. On the business boards of leadership, we have Finance Minister Hots 4% free on board customs levy. Size trade facilitation, inflation concerns. Atop the masthead, Hidabachi says new Guinness World Record for largest serving of jollof rice. That story is on page 7 of Leadership. Congratulations to our very own Hida Batsi. You set another Guinness World Record there. 3 patients died when power firm cut supply. Aminukano Hospital trying to blackmail us, says company. Patients stranded as FCT resident doctors became indefinite strike. That story is on page 4 and 14 of Leadership. And from there, we'll move to page 3 of the paper where we have our stand. Today's stand is on the Planned Armed Forces Museum. The Planned Armed Forces Museum. The Defense Headquarters recently signed a memorandum of understanding with Empower 54 Africa Initiative to establish the Armed Forces Museum in the Federal Capital Territory. The facility, when established, will immortalize its history and honor fallen heroes. The facility will sit on about 10 acres of land in the Federal Capital Territory, and the groundbreaking ceremony is scheduled for the first quarter of 2026. It will serve not only as a repository of military artifacts and service records, but also as a hub for education, tourism, and economic opportunities. And proceeds from the museum will be extended to take care of widows and children of fallen heroes, the headquarters said. Now we take a stand as a paper. As a newspaper, we believe the proposed Armed Forces Museum is a worthy initiative with the potential to boost tourism and create economic opportunities in the mode of the Kigali genocide memorial site in Rwanda's capital. The decision to site the project in the Federal Capital Territory will also add to the relevance of the city of Abuja as the center of unity. The armed forces embody unity, and those who contribute to its unity are from different parts of the country. Preserving human history also has its attendant benefits, such as fostering a shared patriotism beyond religion and ethnicity. This is a critical component of unity that the proposed Armed Forces Museum can harness. Excerpts from today's stand in Leadership newspaper, the Planned Armed Forces Museum. From page 3 of the paper, we move to the back page of Leadership, where we have Tuesday column with Abdurrauf Aliyu. Today's column is on Southeast Fragmented Vision, Fading Promise. Southeast Fragmented Vision, Fading Promise. The quote from the Tuesday column: the Southeast entrepreneurial drive exists, but political fragmentation and weak institutions prevent the region from converting potential into meaningful progress. Quote from today's Tuesday column with Abdurrauf Aliyu. And before we leave the back page, we visit Ghana Must Go. On the news, police arrest suspected child rapist in Yobe, and Ghana Must Go profiles he should be castrated. That is seconded by yours sincerely. It's on that note we conclude review of Leadership newspaper this Tuesday. For more, log into the website of Leadership newspaper. From Leadership, we move to the next paper we have on our lineup, and that is Nigerian Tribune. Nigerian Tribune is still talking 2027, just like leadership before it. It says PDP demands legal backing for electronic transmission of results. 2027, PDP demands legal backing for electronic transmission of results. Says party not dead. Declares confidence in Fubara as emergency rule winds down in Rivers. Dismisses relevance of article orders. Says reconciliation, disciplinary measures in progress. These are kickers to the politics 2027 ahead cover on Nigerian Tribune. Move to reduce federal government stakes in joint oil ventures capable of undermining Nigeria's sovereignty, Article warns. Oyo launches Sustainable Social Protection Initiative. CNA says I can facilitate Natasha's resumption. That is the clerk of the National Assembly. I can't facilitate Natasha's resumption. Says Senate court must authorize her return. And in health news today on Nigerian Tribune, daily walking can prevent back pain risk by 23%, according to study carried out. So to prevent your back pain risk, you have to walk at least every day, daily walking, according to study. Second leading story on today's Nigerian Tribune. Our refinery ended Nigeria's 50-year fuel queue crisis. Dangote. Our refinery ended Nigeria's 50-year fuel queue crisis. We are creating jobs, not displacing anyone. Industrialization, not importation, will grow Africa's economy. Kickers to that second leading Dangote story on Nigerian Tribune today. Our refinery ended Nigeria's 50-year fuel queue crisis. And that takes us to the story above the masthead of Nigerian Tribune. Guinness Book of World Records confirms Hida Bashi's largest serving of Nigerian jollof rice. Nigeria's inflation rate dropped to 20.12% in August, coming from NBS, that is National Bureau of Statistics. And that also concludes review of front headline stories on Nigerian Tribune this Tuesday. For more, log into the website of Nigerian Tribune. We move to the next paper we have on our lineup, and that is The Punch. The Punch says food price crash. Farmers fought federal government's order as agro imports hit 2.2 trillion naira. Just what leadership analyst said earlier during his commentary. Food price crash. Farmers fought federal government's order as agro imports hit 2.2 trillion naira. That story is on page 24 of The Punch, and the kicker say order won't work. Federal governments must subsidize transport agri sectors, AFAN, millers. Federal government to distribute 2,000 tractors to farmers. These are kickers to the leading story on today's The Punch newspaper. Food price crash. Farmers fought federal government's order as agro imports hit 2.2 trillion naira. We also have the picture of Dangote CNG trucks on the cover of The Punch newspaper. Beneath that leading story, Dangote vows refinery won't fall to oil mafia. Also have the picture of a Dangote there with his executives. South is behind as Southwest maintains voter pre-registration lead. NEPA protests, 2 Nigerian inmates rearrested after jailbreak. Federal government suspends controversial 4% import duty levy. Presidency fires back as article warns of revolution. That story is beside the masthead of The Punch, and it continues on page 21 of the paper. Atop the masthead, Sanu Nasu issues strike notice over unpaid allowances. Forex inflows reserve boost naira to 1,497 naira per dollar. Tinubu Fubara end foreign trips. Iba set for handover, and that is on the 18th. That is 2 days away in Rivers State. Of course, the SO administrator will be handing over to the democratically elected governor of the state, Fubara. Moving ahead, that concludes the review of front headline stories on The Punch. We move ahead to the next paper we have on our lineup, and that is The Guardian. The Guardian is talking business as its main cover story. It says money illusion fuels fiscal crisis as state deficit soar. That story is on page 6 of The Guardian. Money illusion fuels fiscal crisis as state deficit soar. We have illustration beneath that leading story. We have state's FAC earnings. From 2016, the state's FAC earnings was 1.64 trillion naira. In 2017, it increased to 1.79 trillion naira. In 2018, 2.58 trillion naira. In 2019, it was 2.53 trillion naira. In 2020, that is states FAC earnings was, that is in 2020, 2.35 trillion naira. In 2021, 2.3 trillion naira. In 2022, 2.76 trillion naira. In 2023, we had 4.49 trillion naira. It has more than doubled since 2023. And in 2024, last year, we had 5.36 trillion naira. And 2025, presently, up to presently, 7.1 trillion naira. States deficit soar. This is irrespective of these increased earnings by states. However, the states' debts and deficits continue to soar. We also have beneath that states FAC earnings, we have states IGR. IGR in 2023 increased to 2.43 trillion naira. In 2022, it was from 1.93. 2021, it was 1.9. 2020, 1.31. 2019, 1.33. 2018, 1.16. 2017, now around 36.47 billion. 2016, 823 billion naira. And there is an explanation why the increase in nominal earnings does not translate to higher solvency. The dangerous paradox: the more money they collect, the poorer they become, has only raised expectations, increased fiscal pressure, and given a false perception of more spending power. Those are illustrations beneath the business leading story on The Guardian this Tuesday, September 16, 2025. Money illusion fuels fiscal crisis as state deficits soar. In other words, what it's trying to say that the more they earn, the more debts these states incur in their respective states. Federal government orders relocation of roaming cattle to grazing reserves. $4.5 billion fraud trial. Court grants Emefiele's request for forensic examination. International Day, Nigeria's democracy faces grave threats from hunger, corruption. Article CSOs 1. Nigerian Medical Association rejects salary cut for Lagos doctors. Faults federal government on funding. Adeleke devastated, laments as flood ravages Osun community. Stable exchange rate, food prices drive down inflation to 20.12%. PSD collapses as bandits abduct 40 in Zamfara. That is a trending story in the nation today. And there is also the same story in leadership. Bandits abduct 40 worshippers, key district head in Zamfara. It's a story that made the cover of all the papers we have on our lineup. And that takes us to the stories just beneath the masthead of The Guardian. 2027, Nigerians won't accept technical glitch excuses. PDP warns INEC. Federal government suspends customs FOB levy on imports. That is the business story on the business boss of leadership this Tuesday. How our refinery saved Nigeria's oil sector by Dangote. And that concludes the review of front headline stories on The Guardian this Tuesday. For more, log into the website of The Guardian newspaper. We head up to the last paper we have on our lineup, and that is the Daily Times. The Daily Times leading stories this Tuesday says Tinubu halts vacation to stabilize security, review economic policies. Coming from the presidency. Tinubu halts vacation to stabilize security, review economic policies. That story runs on page 2 of Daily Times. Reviving railways key to Nigeria's role as Africa's logistics hub. Coming from VP Shetima. Court declines motion seeking Nnamdi Kanu's transfer to National Hospital. Submit your sermon for approval. Niger governor tells clerics. Infrastructural development. Embrace Tinubu with both hands. Umahi tells Southeast. DMO allows 3.05 billion naira federal government of Nigerian savings bond in September. That story is on page 13 of the Daily Times. And we move to the stories above the masthead. Federal government's reforms without human face triggers pervasive hunger, poverty. Coming from former VP Atiku. Nigeria's inflation drops for fifth consecutive time, NBS. And that sharing news concludes the review of front headline stories on the Daily Times this Tuesday. For more, log into the website of Daily Times, www.dailytimesng.com. And with that, we conclude today's Inside Nigeria, brought to you on Leadership Newspaper. And of course, I hope you had an educative time, especially when you're listening to our leadership analyst, Paul Wadima. My name is Winifred Ugbebo. I look forward to having you same time, same station for another fresh edition of the program same tomorrow. And don't also forget to join us on this station for news on the hour. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word. Thank you for watching.